주었지만 오른발 슛! 골! 두 번째 골! 맞습니다. 유상철 선수예요.
Jung Muyeol with the cross.
Ah, yes! And it's the man who missed the penalty who scores the winner. What a story! And Jung Muyeol.
You're listening to the K-League United podcast, proud partner of Football Nation Radio.
Hello, 안녕하세요. Welcome to the K-League United podcast, where we are drawing our 2002 World Cup Rewind series to a close. Korea have fought valiantly, but were eventually knocked out in the semi-finals to Germany. However, there is the small matter of the third place playoff to be decided. Joining me for this look back at this side's legacy is Paul Neat. Hello, Paul.
Hello there. How are you doing?
Oh, not too bad. It's Korea is not my team, but I and this happened 20 years ago, but still feels a bit odd. You watch them fight through against Italy, you watch them fight against Spain, and you see those missed chances at the end against Germany, and you think, what could have been in a way?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I can't help but think that if they hadn't have been put through extra time in the round of 16 in the Spain game, they might have just had a little bit more. I do wonder. Gus Hiddink may have talked about this in the many years since, about whether he perhaps sort to have rotated things a bit more to keep some of the players fresh, but they just looked tired. They looked like they didn't have anything left in the tank. But yeah, incredible, absolutely incredible journey. And yeah, I've got a new, not level of respect. I've always had that, but I've got a certain affection for some of these players now, just because of what they've done in this World Cup. It's been a great journey.
Indeed. I've actually had a bit of a hypothetical as well. I was wondering if Korea made it through. The final was in Japan, so they would have had to have gone to Japan to play the final after playing all of their other games on home turf. You wonder whether there's any contingency plans in place to swap the third and fourth place playoff and the final round. I very much doubt there was. But
that's
yeah,
a good question. Yeah, imagine winning the World Cup. Imagine Korea winning the World Cup in Japan.
Yeah. But yeah, they didn't, and that means that they are now playing the third and fourth playoff game in Korea. That's where it was set. It was designated down in Daegu at Daegu Stadium, the largest of the World Cup stadiums. And Paul, the third place playoff to me, it always seems like a bit of a waste of time. We the last World Cup, our side, England, made it to the third and fourth place playoff after getting knocked out in the semi-finals. Did you watch the 2018 one against Belgium?
No, I don't even know who won. Did we win that one?
No, we lost 2-0.
I didn't watch it. What was the point? I was just so upset that we didn't get to the final. Kieran Trippier's free kick. I was just dreaming for that period of time. So no, I didn't bother watching it. It may. If the game, I don't know what time the game kicked off here in Korea, time zone wise, but if it was at a reasonable time, I might have watched it. But I suspect it probably wasn't. That's why I definitely didn't. But even if I did, I'm not bothered.
And no plans for final day. Stay in bed and drift away is the
indeed
the three lines lyric, isn't it? Well, the 98 version anyway.
Yeah.
I think. I would never. I didn't watch the 2018 one either. Tell the truth, same reason as you. Why would you? But if it was in your home country and your team had defied the odds in such a manner, I could see how it would serve as kind of a fitting send off. Having 60,000 fans in the stadium to kind of just celebrate what the team has achieved. In a way, I could see how it serves a purpose in this sense, but as an actual concept, I struggle to comprehend it.
Without sounding arrogant about English arrogance of football, but England are supposed to be one of the teams that you feel like they should be getting into the last stages. England always think they should win the World Cup. So when England get knocked out, we're preconditioned to sort of believe that they might do it. So when you get knocked out, it hurts. But when it's a team that have defied the odds and get through it, it's not really, it's not really heartbreaking. Oh, it's for the fans, it would have been upsetting. But just looking at the 2002 FIFA rankings, right? England were 12th back then. South Korea were all the way down at 40. Now in the modern day, now they're around 27th. So obviously they made a lot of improvements in that, in the time. But Korea, even as the host nation, were never going to be expected to get this far. So yeah, there's probably not that sense of heartbreak that we had, England fans had in 2018. It's not. It wouldn't hurt to watch that game, But for us, for England, or for any team that supports any fan that watches the team that's supposed to win it, like Danny Pinto says, the Portugal podcast, that after the year out, you just didn't want to watch it. Why would you watch it? So yeah, you're right. It was probably a fitting send off. It played at the stadium where Korea picked up some important wins throughout the tournament as well in Daegu, and it was probably a bit of a celebration of just what they achieved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean the third and fourth playoff as well. We don't have it it's not in the European Championships, but it's been a mainstay in the World Cup for many a year, and it's usually high scoring. The last one with fewer than 2 goals was 1974, actually, where Poland beat Brazil 1-0. And it's usually in a different stadium. A lot of the organisers put it in a smaller stadium. It has actually only been once used in the same as the final. That was in 1994. Both third and fourth playoff and the final were played in the Rose Bowl.
Match MVP Diana Ross in that one.
Yeah. And I guess in Korea and Japan's case as well, it keeps the matches evenly split between the two nations, because if you didn't have that third and fourth place playoff, then one country's going to have more matches than the other. So the final was set for Japan. This match was set for Daegu. It's actually the first time as well that Turkey played in Korea in this competition, because they were obviously in the other half of the competition that played all their games in Japan. So Turkey coming over to Korea for this one. But seems like the teams are out, Paul. The stadium is full, and referees, kicks off.
Yeah, kick things off, and surprisingly, Gus Hiddink hasn't made hardly any changes really to his team. It's quite interesting that even though the game really doesn't really mean anything, he has gone for a very strong team. The only real change is that Lee Min-sung has given a start. Mm-hmm. But even with that, a consistent team selection, Korea go down in the first minute. The goal is Turkey take the lead. An uncharacteristic error from Hong Young-bo, who is pickpocketed by Ilhan Manziz. The ball finds its way to Hakan Shuka, who makes no mistake and prods the ball past the on-rushing Eun Jae.
Yeah, not the start Korea would have wanted, but they quickly find an equaliser. It only took about 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Il Young sending in a stunning free kick in the 9th minute. Top corner, goalkeeper, no chance. Song Chong-guk was fouled by Yildiray Basturk, but to earn the free kick, Il Young hits it left-footed. Yeah, top corner. What a start. What a start for this match.
네. 자, 어디로 갈까요? 이율용. 직접 차네요. 골! 이율용! 골이에요! 득점입니다. 이율용 선수 왼발이 크로스로 말이죠. 네. 기가 막히게 감아쳤습니다. 이렇게 하면 되는 거예요. 두 골 넣으면 이겨요. 이율용. 멋진 골이에요. 이율용. 홍명보 선수가 홀담을 하겠습니다. 이율용의 기가 막힌 이율용 선수의 왼발 엄지발가락 쪽에 말이죠. 직접 쏘들어갑니다. 자, 슛하나요? 아깝죠? 슛! 펀칭! 잘 때렸는데요. 이천수. 정확히 갔어요. 네. 이율용. 이제 경기 주도권은.
What a start indeed, yes. And something that I noticed or I remembered when looking at the teams, that this is a good Turkey team. There's some big names in this team. You might think, oh, how did they get to the semi-finals? This was a good team. But yeah, breathless start to this one. Both teams clearly taking this game very, very seriously. And 12 minutes, another goal. It's 2-1 to Turkey. İlhan Manziz, he set up the first one. He gets himself on the score sheet. Hakan Şükür with the assist. An intelligent cutback inside the box. Rolls reverse for that one. And now it's 2-1 to Turkey.
Indeed. And we have to wait a little bit longer for the next goal, but it does come on just after the half-hour mark, and it's another defensive mix-up in the Korea defence. It allows Turkey to make it 3-1. Hong Myung-bo and Lee Min-sung get in each other's way, which allows İlhan Manziz and Hakan Şükür to combine once again. Manziz with his second of the game, a lovely dink over the keeper, and brings us to half-time, Paul.
Yes, Korea 1, Turkey 3. A bit of a lack of concentration and some defensive mishaps mean Korea trail at the break.
Indeed. There is a halftime substitution. Kim Tae-young comes on for Hong Myung-bo at the back. I think Gus Hiddink probably bringing Hong off after a couple of errors there.
And that's 2 games in a row now that Hong, the captain as well, has been, I wouldn't say hauled off, but he's been brought off. He got taken off in the semi-final as well. He wouldn't, I don't know, that I'm not sure whether that would have caused a stir at the time, but it would now, wouldn't it? If your captain got taken off 2 games in a row. But yeah, clearly Gus Hiddink wants to try and salvage this game. And, Korea, on the 52nd minute, Lee Chun-soo forces a decent save from Rekbar Rushdu. Lee Yul-young has a pop a little bit after that, but it's a comfortable save from the keeper.
Yeah. Korea having a good go in the second half, but Rekbar is in great form. Eventually, they do find another goal, but it comes in the 92nd minute, Paul.
Yes, Song Jong-guk with a daisy cutter from around 25 to 30 yards out from the right.
돌아오고 안정원과 차비를 극다슛 골! 성정국! 골이에요, 성정국! 3대1보다는 3대2가 훨씬 재미있게 나왔습니다. 성정국 기가 막힌 심적인 슈팅이었거든요. 네, 성정국. 줄 알고 골키퍼가 위치를 다소 어설프게 잡은 것을 읽고 네. 성정국 선수가 기습적으로 슈팅을 해서
But that's more or less it. That is more or less the last action of the game. And the game ends 3-2. And Korea finish 4th in this World Cup. And Turkey are 3rd.
Indeed. And we're not going to end this with the 3rd and 4th place playoff. Because, as we've mentioned at the start, it's not something that many fans like to sit through. And, we think our listeners probably want a bit more than that. So we wanted to talk about the legacy of this World Cup and the legacy of it on Korean football and the legacy of it on Korea itself. But to do that, we thought we might have to get some experts in. So first off, our very own Jung Muyeol sat down to speak with you, Paul.
All right, Muyeol, welcome back. We've had a bit of time to get over the Germany result. How do you feel ahead of this game today against Turkey?
But I think I was pretty confident we could finish 3rd. I mean, with no offense, but Turkey was not really well-known football powerhouse. So I thought we really could finish 3rd in this game.
Yeah. Did you watch the game?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
It was played in Daegu.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't go.
Tickets,
I wasn't lucky enough to get a ticket, to be honest.
Yeah. So, because I find it interesting because if it, for example, in the 2018 World Cup, I know it wasn't in England, and I wasn't in Russia, but the 3rd and 4th place game, I didn't even watch it because I was just like, having come so close and the disappointment, I just couldn't really find myself just have any interest in this 3rd and 4th place game. But you were very, very. Still very enthusiastic about it all and wanting Korea to try and finish 3rd.
I mean, yeah, to be honest, I didn't watch any 3rd and 4th playoff game in other editions of World Cup, but this is like a very special occasion for us.
Fair enough. Well, Gus Hiddink, again, didn't make that many changes to this team. Was Was that the right decision? Should he have given more game time to players who hadn't played that much during the run-up to the semis, or do you think he made the right decision here?
Well, personally, I have to disagree with Gus Hiddink's selection this time. I didn't think he made the right decision, and I still don't think he made the right decision. Because I guess he just wanted his best boys to finish off the tournament with a win. However, I think his boys seems to be too tired and less motivated at this stage of the tournament.
Yeah, and I noticed that Min Song didn't really cover himself in glory because he was perhaps wasn't at his best for the Germany goal, and then there was a bit of a mix-up for one of the goals in the Turkey game. I think it might have been the third goal that him and Hong Yong-bo got themselves confused, or they weren't really communicating, and then they scored. It wasn't really. Maybe that's why. Maybe he didn't really have too many other players that he trusted to come in and do a good job, because the first 11 was very good. Well, the first 11 plus 3 or 4 subs, well, 3 subs, because of Lee Chun-soo was fantastic, and you had those options off the bench with An Jong-hwan and people like that. But maybe he just didn't have too many people that he could trust. So, was there anybody in that squad that you felt that you wanted to see start that we hadn't seen in the group stages or in the other games?
Yes, I personally wanted to see Yoon Jung-hwan, the creative, the attacking midfielder. I think we need a lot of. I personally think we need more fresh legs in the midfield and more options up front as well. So I think what he could bring to the game was like a creativity and just a distribution in the midfield.
Yeah. What did you think of the game then? Obviously, it was a very exciting start. 3 goals in the first, 15 minutes maybe? What did you think of the game?
Well, I thought we probably would get embarrassed because we conceded goal like within a minute, probably within 20 seconds. I remember it was 11 seconds or 12 seconds, I think.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so that was very early goal to concede. So, I mean, I thought we would battle the game.
Yeah.
But we came back and we tried to keep in the game. So, I think fairly entertaining to watch because we scored a goal from like free kick, which was fantastic strike.
Yeah. Yeah, Il Young, great free kick from him. Yeah, okay. Okay, so obviously a lot has been said about this team. Did finish 4th take away anything from their achievement at this World Cup?
Not at all. I mean, it'd be unfair if finishing 4th take away from like a team's achievement, because it's not really good to end on a low note. But however, just like it was truly incredible journey this team have had made so far. So I mean, we might, for my generation, maybe all of South Koreans, we might not have this success anytime soon. So this team and this edition of World Cup will never be forgotten in our heart.
And how did this World Cup and the South Korean team help to improve the popularity of football in the country?
But I think it immediately affected very much. Like the slogan on display in the last game against Turkey was "See you at K-League." And afterwards, the league drew a huge number of crowd, and some games even played in front of the sellout crowd.
Wow.
So it was incredible. Like a K-League game was like a lot different to modern days games. So huge fans and the players becomes like a celebrity. So they have their own fan clubs or fan community. So it was a lot different to what we are seeing at this moment in the K-League.
And did you go to any games? So obviously at the time, Daegu FC wasn't founded quite yet. That came that started in 2003. Obviously your first games, but with all this popularity and this new excitement, did you go to some games elsewhere in the country in 2002?
In 2002, no, I didn't. But Daegu Stadium hosted one K-League game. I think I remember it was a Busan. It was supposed to be Busan's home game, taking on Suwon Blue Wings, but they moved to Daegu for one-off and played there to like just promote football and like basically just promote football and the K-League.
Interesting.
People, yeah.
That's good. So you went to that game. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I did.
What was the crowd like? Was it a sellout?
No, it never.
It was a good.
It was good turnout. I think it was probably around 20,000 crowd. But just Daegu Stadium is massive, so 20,000 crowd out of 66,000.
It's still
capacity.
Good.
It's almost nothing.
Yeah, but it's still good for K-League though. Yeah. So obviously, clearly, then there was a very noticeable difference. What did it do to your football fandom? Surely, then already you love football, but after this World Cup, you must have been even more so, right?
Yeah, it did actually. I already love football even before 2002 World Cup, and the success of this World Cup really got me into football more and more. As before then, I would say I was kind of just watching football only on the TV, or that's it. However, after 2002 World Cup, Daegu FC was founded, and I became a huge fan of Daegu FC. So I attended every single game.
Very good. All right. Well, after this tournament, heading into the next major tournaments for South Korea, were expectations high for this team? I mean, looking at the 2004 Asian Cup, Korea won Group B, but then lost to Iran in the quarters. And then 2006 World Cup, the next World Cup, Korea didn't even get out of their group. Were expectations too high maybe after this? What was it like?
Yeah, unfortunately, the expectations were absurdly high. Yeah. As if like a South Korea became the fourth in the world of football.
Yeah.
So like fans have such a high hope for the player, but the team just honestly couldn't live up to that expectation easily. And in particular, just right after the World Cup, just the KFA hired a Portuguese manager, Humberto Coelho. I mean, I personally like him, and he was a really good manager. He tried to inject some creativity in Korean football with short passing style. However, it never came back with a good result, and we had to face three most shocking results in Korean football history against Vietnam, Oman, and Maldives. We either lost or drew. So, which cost him a post. And then, so I think it was really the darkest time right after the World Cup. And before 2006 World Cup, we were still struggling to get our form back.
Fair enough. Well, last question then. I would say that, what would you say about this World Cup coming up? I mean, where are our expectations? Are they, after so many sort of kind of disappointing tournaments, are expectations quite low, or do you think that they're always high for South Korea?
Always high.
Yeah.
I mean, this time even higher because of those huge success from Son in Premier League.
Yeah.
I think he has so much burden on his shoulder.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. All right, well, Muyeol, thank you very much for all your insights throughout this whole series, obviously from the group stages right the way through to this Turkey game for the 3rd and 4th place playoff. Well, that's it, and we'll see you in K-League.
Thank you very much. See you later.
Thank you.
FNR is a revolutionary football-dedicated digital platform, the first of its kind in Australia. It provides a 24/7 live online radio platform experience, podcast hub, and acts as a content provider for TV, radio, and digital. Having reached millions of listeners and football fans since launching, FNR is accessible worldwide via its website or app, providing a platform to discuss, debate, and celebrate the world game. We are your voice of football, FNR Football Nation Radio.
Okay, welcome back to the K-League United podcast. Before the break, we heard Muyeol giving his thoughts on the legacy of the 2002 World Cup team. And we thought it would also be a good chance to ask about the legacy of this team from a website that was founded with this World Cup as its inspiration. We sat down with Roy Ghim, the founder of Korean football website Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors, and we got his story about how this World Cup influenced him and what he thought about this team. Hello and welcome back to the K-League United podcast. Matthew Binns here, and I'm joined by the old Tavern owner, aka founder of Korean footballing website Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors, Roy Ghim. Roy, it's finally good to have you on.
Yeah, it's great to be on. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm sure many of our listeners are actually familiar with yourself and the crew over at the Tavern, as our circles and interests often overlap, as we were talking about just before we came on. But would you care to give a brief intro to those who may be coming across yourself and the Tavern for the first time?
Sure. The transition, we're in a state of transition because in about 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago to this date, started the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors. It was a blog based in the English language because I didn't know very much Hangukma. And a lot of it was based on covering the 2012 Korean Olympic journey. They were trying to win bronze, and they eventually won bronze medal, which was just amazing. And it allowed a golden generation of that time to have military exemption and move on with their careers, Ki Sung-young and amongst them. And so, but now we're in a state of transition where a lot of the blog writers have moved on to something called Fighting Stripes, which is covering not only Korean football, but also Korean cultural items and the connection between Korean American culture and culture back in Korea. And there's so much interplay right now with BTS coming to the U.S. and so forth, and being diplomatic music ambassadors. So it's a fascinating thing. While I'm going to be winding down the football blog, we've had a good run, 10 years, but it's like a punk rock band that rages hard and burns out.
I mean, it's been an excellent 10 years here at the Tavern. And I mean, I guess that kind of what we're talking about in this episode. We're talking about the legacy. You talked there about the golden generation of 2012, but I want to take it back 10 years further. And we're talking about the 2002 World Cup. And yeah, we thought there was no better place to start, really, when we were talking about how has this affected Korea and Korean football in general. So let's start with your story, Roy. Take us back to 2002. What were you up to and where were you?
Yeah, well, in fact, just you talking about 2002 World Cup, it just gave me goosebumps. It was such a transcendent time. I don't say that lightly. I was in a state of transition. I was living in Denver. I was a special ed teacher, a humble educator, and but I was in 2002, leading up to the World Cup. I was in love. Quite literally, with my soon-to-be wife at the time. So I was engaged to be married, but I was in between apartments. So moving from one apartment in Denver to another, finally finished up at 2:30 in the morning. And so I was exhausted, and my host was not in at the time. I think she was traveling. So I turned on the television to just unwind, and there was Korea playing, I believe, Poland, and I was like, I looked in, because I had no idea, one, that the World Cup was going on, and two, I had no idea that Korea was in it and that they were hosting. So all these narratives just suddenly came into the fore, and I was glued. It from just casual interest to then, I was riveted by what was going on the screen. And when they had scored, I just went, and I had never done this necessarily for American football or hockey that I was into at the time. I just ran around this apartment like a madman. And I think the next game, I think when they had come back, maybe against the U.S. to draw, I had I ran out the streets in Denver in the middle of the night like a maniac.
How I mean, just quickly on the USA game, you were there. Was anybody else aware that Korea had just?
No, it was just me. It was just me. And I had just. I don't know what I was yelling, but I just remember just going outside in the streets of Denver, just like, I don't know how, maybe a quarter of a mile before I limp back home.
I mean, waking up at such hours to watch it, like, it wasn't at a convenient time for you, this World Cup. So it makes it even more amazing that this was your entry into Korean football and football in general as well. What was it then that made you stay up in particular? I mean, you saw Korea on the TV.
Well, I think it was exactly that. I was not. I think I was not very connected to Korean culture as much as I'd like to. I was struggling to learn Korean. I still do. I struggle to communicate with my mom. She speaks to me in Korean, and I speak back to her in English, and somehow we figure things out. But I think then when I saw this Korean team that I knew, wasn't picked to win the whole thing. You just knew it, but they were, I think, against the odds. I guess against even historical odds, they were managing to, stay in competition with the best in the world. That riveted me, and that just made me draw in and see what else was happening here. And I think in maybe an indirect way, it was a way to just attempt to reconnect with my Korean cultural heritage.
Yeah, and I mean, you said you didn't really know much about the World Cup before, and you didn't really know anything going into it. Because obviously I come from England, where every football cycle it's drummed about you can't escape it. Football hashtag it's coming home, like every 5 minutes. But yeah,
I was familiar in the sense I had a lot of international friends who would every 4 years they would invite me to watch the World Cup wherever I was living at. 98, in France, there was a lot of Latino immigrants who invited me to their homes to watch, and I didn't. I mean, that was probably my first introduction to the World Cup at that point in time, and I didn't know much, but it seemed very excited. That everybody was excitable, and there was lots of food, and I think that cacophony was fascinating to me. But then once the World Cup ended in '98, then there was just this complete, at least in the U.S., there wasn't at the time this permutation through the culture of football or soccer. And so, these major touch points sometimes happen every now and then. 1999, the U.S. women winning the World Cup at the Rose Bowl. That was pretty iconic. I saw that and I was interested. And then, as soon as that ends, there's just no more media saturation of soccer, on TV. So it's like a presidential election. People maybe get interested every 4 years in the U.S. But I don't know. I sense that nowadays, and I mean, maybe this is a different topic for another time, but I sense that, with soccer, football in the U.S. becoming more out there, more accessible on TV, the interest does seem to be rising beyond just the World Cup.
It certainly seems that way. I mean, it may just be the fact that we have Ryan hosting this every other week, so I've become more aware of the MLS and American football culture a lot more in recent years. But it does seem far more prevalent than what it did 20 years ago to myself.
It was actually non-existent back when, in 2002, it just wasn't, out there. In fact, I believe the MLS was really on the ropes at that time. so just accidentally coming across the World Cup in the middle of the night was really, it was serendipity in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't plan it. It was an accident.
Well, what a perfect accident. And what who were the players that stood out for you during that tournament? Because you're coming in here, you've got 11 players in front of you, and you're looking at them, and you haven't really been following this team before.
Sure.
These are names you are probably not familiar with. Who was there that stood out to you immediately?
Well, at the time, anybody that with wild, crazy hair.
Oh, there was a lot of it. There was one of the things Paul and I have touched on straight away is like the hair. The hair is very prominent.
I feel like now that I think about it, I hadn't even thought of this. I had, maybe bleached orange, brown hair, and I suspect, going back thinking about it all, that it came from watching the World Cup at that moment in time.
Oh, wow.
But the players that stood out, I didn't know these names at the time, but researching later, Lee Young-pyo, Park Ji-sung, Ang Jung-won, that was, I believe the golden goal where Lee Young-pyo set up the cross to Ang Jung-won. When that happened, that was probably the moment that I was all in. It blew my mind. I mean, if I thought the celebration middle of the night in Denver at the beginning of the group stage was something, that took it to a whole nother level. I at that point, I was in.
Yeah. I mean, I can't get over that was the round of 16. That in my head was I still get it confused today. I know it was Spain afterwards, but I remember that as what got them to the semi-final. That goal, it hovered in the air for ages. And obviously, there was also other controversies in that Italian match, but I don't think anyone cared who wasn't Italian. I remember everybody. I think I was having a barbecue, and that's what I remember of that game. And I just remember somebody coming out going, "They've done it!" and like everybody running in, and nobody could believe it. Korea had beaten Italy of all teams.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll tell you, when I disbelieved that anything was going to happen, even to the point where it connected with his head. But when it went in, it was like the impossible just became possible, and it just, like I said, it was such a mind-blowing event. I just lost my mind there.
Understandably so. I mean, I'm watching it back now. My only link to Korea in football is what we do with K-League and my time here. But you hear the sound, the roar of the crowd when that ball goes in, and to have something in that competition for you to support, it would have been absolutely unbelievable.
Well, I'll tell you this real quick. When seeing they at some point they cut to the masses on the streets in the red shirts, hovering. I don't know, maybe 1 million people. I have no idea. It was this horde of Korean supporters on those hovering around the big screens in the streets and just celebrating. In that way, I just felt like there was. I'm there. I may not be right there on the streets, but I felt like there. Yeah.
It's unbelievable looking back. It really is.
Fans, we want to hear from you. You're encouraged to email KLU at info@kleagueunited.com or tweet at KLeagueUnited with any questions, comments or reactions. Or ask directly during one of our live shows.
Moving on slightly from this onto the legacy of this competition. So I'm going to do this in two parts. I think we can really look at the legacy in regards to this team, and then we can look at the legacy in regards to Korean football. So I think we'll start with the team. The legacy that this side, by Gus Hiddink, the legacy it's set in motion, how has it gone on to affect future iterations and expectations for South Korea, do you feel?
Well, I mean, that is it's a very fascinating question because there's so many moving parts to that. We can look at I think one by Gus Hiddink being able to then take Lee Young-pyo and Park Ji-sung to the Netherlands, and then on they were able to get to their storied clubs in England later on, as we well know. That opened a lot of doors. I mean, as much as Cha Bong-kun did open the doors initially, it was only one avenue in Germany that Cha Bong-kun was able to open up. This golden generation, Lee Young-pyo and Park Ji-sung and others were able to then break into the Premier League and get into another level, so to speak. And I think that it helped, at least on the club level, being able to, there weren't a lot of Asians in competitive top flight European football. So that, I think, helped. The expectations, however, was so great that there's just no way with the infrastructure that they had at the time to be able to carry that through. And so you see, it took quite a while before they were able to, the Korean national team was able to advance out of the group stage until Africa in 2010.
Yeah.
So, and it's also, I think, regrettable that while there was interest in for example, the domestic league, the K-League, there was interest. There was a lot of people, coming to the World Cup stadiums. There was a kind of, oddly enough, I think that it was, nobody knew in hindsight that they were probably too big. Those stadiums were probably too cavernous for the kind of organic-based growing of the soccer culture in Korea. And when those numbers started dwindling and they couldn't fill those stadiums, there was a ripple effect, I think. So I don't know. It was great that the World Cup was in Korea. It was unfortunate that, the design of that couldn't allow for the organic growth of Korean domestic football to continue. So it's a strange.
Yeah, it's like they always did too well, but you wouldn't change it for the world. Like,
right.
I don't think Korea were expecting to get that far, and all the offshoots of that. Perhaps they didn't imagine they'd be trying to push the K-League on the back of Korea's phenomenal run. But,
right.
Yeah.
But I tell you though, the final analysis though is that the inspiration it had for, there's still a lot of infrastructure issues that you see with the pipeline of development in Korean youth football.
Yeah.
It's good on one hand, but it could be better. There's a lot of structural issues that need to be worked out even to this day. But when you see the inspiration of a 10-year-old Son Heung-min, for example, I think it's undeniable that the World Cup did have an imprint on another generation that we wouldn't see the fruits of until much later. Yeah. And so it's fascinating to see that there is this long-term ripple, and hopefully, long may that continue.
Definitely indeed. South Korea as well, just in terms of World Cup history, they hadn't been a regular. They had been a regular feature rather. They had been a regular feature at the World Cup since 1986, qualifying for each one. But 2002, obviously, stark difference in terms of results. How do you think 2002 altered people's perception of them in the wider footballing world, so outside of Korea?
Oh, definitely. It raised their profile to a degree that they were impossible to ignore. I think it just, people were, I think prior to that, I think they were looked on as, just an easy, this is an easy obstacle. I believe that after that, I think people took Korea seriously. And that, I think, was able to, again, elevate a lot of these individual players to have different, despite the fact that there is this, shackle on their ankles of the military conscription, the service that they have to do, unless they were lucky enough to win an Olympic gold or Asian gold medal, or any Olympic medal, should I say?
Yeah.
But it allowed a lot more clubs to just take a look and take a chance on them, and I think that that has just overlapping benefits for a number of the Korean players to develop at the top flight competition in Europe, the best in the world. So I believe that's what the biggest difference before and then after.
Yeah. Certainly. So, like the number of players that have come through, gone on to Europe, have European clubs taking the chance on Korean players, despite the shackles of conscription, or even the ones that do manage to get it as well. It's like clubs do recognise the talent that is available in Korea to utilise, I think, and I think that links back to this World Cup and how much it changed things.
Right.
Was that squad just a one-off, do you think? Or do you think Korea could bottle lightning twice and go far in the competition again in the near future? Maybe in 2020, it may be a nice little 20-year anniversary run to the semi-final, perhaps.
I have a quick two-part answer. Is this part of me that is long-suffering? I guess in some ways, like England fans, supporters would feel that outside of 1966 that there's a curse or a hoodoo on them. There's a part of me that feels that same way with the Korea squad. Korea is our England's 1966 in a sense, but somehow Korea is still able to punch above their weight.
Mm-hmm.
I look. Maybe this is an unfair comparison, but the United States, because I'm a youth soccer grassroots coach in the United States, you see some of the infrastructure problems, in a sense, because the country is too big to be able to, come together on one page. It is the logistics, the distance, the travel is so much of an obstacle that we're still trying to scratch our heads, trying to figure out how to come together. Smaller nations, you look at Belgium. Korea is a smaller country in comparison to the U.S., but because of that, there is a weird built-in advantage in a sense. Mm-hmm. It is possibly easier to get on the same page and then be able to. I mean, I think, for example, a Korean supporter is able to go on a speed train and catch a game halfway across the country. And I think that when you look at compact countries that do well, Korea can fit in that mold and then be able to develop in an organic way that's efficient because of the compact size of the country.
I've never actually, I don't know why I haven't thought of that actually, but yeah, that is true, because I mean, often people point towards China. I know it's a far bigger mess what's going on there, but they'll say, oh, if they could only harness the talent that is clearly available here, but you're trying to motivate a large population, and I guess the same with the States. It's just a massive landmass to try and mobilize into one functioning team. I mean, they're doing very well at the moment, the US, I think, but it's a very good point, that. And jump on, you got the KTX everywhere here. If people want to follow the K-League, it is very easy and very affordable to do so. So getting into football here, there's certainly no real barrier in terms of access to it.
There is a part of me that says it is possible in the future. Korea could have the potential to make another deeper run, but you can see in the years past 2002 just how difficult that is, even with talented footballers from the Olympic 2012 generation. How far they were able to go. They were stymied for a number of reasons. Maybe coaching. Who knows? There's a lot of different moving parts to this. So the difficulty is more than apparent. But I think Korea has a never say die attitude. And I think maybe that is what would propel another squad in the future to make another deep run. I think the hope is always there.
A couple more questions very quickly. We've just kind of touched on this, but do you think the achievements of that side burden today's squad in any way?
Yes and no. I mean, the Korean sportsman, I don't want to generalize them all. There's a lot of variety of them, but take the average Korean sports fan that is surface deep, into Korean football. And I say surface deep because if, unfortunately, you still see the TV numbers for the K-League, and I think the attendance is still, it could be better.
It definitely could be, yes.
So that's where I suspect that there's a lot of people that are surface, Korea supporters, but they're not going to the domestic leagues and games and supporting and being able to understand things from that pipeline. And then they go onto the internet and then they spout off. They're great Korean fans if they're winning, and if they're struggling, they think the world is ending, and that's a burden to have that kind of unrealistic expectation that they're going to repeat 2002 every time we're up for the World Cup finals. And the reality is that they really need to be able to just get themselves into and if they were able to get into the domestic side of things, I think they would find a brand new perspective on Korean football, that there is a long game to it.
Yeah, and it all helps each other. You get fans going to games, that encourages the clubs to think, oh, there is something in this, we can invest more. Then you'll get clubs thinking, well, hang on, maybe we can try something different. They'll take a gamble on a perhaps an overseas manager or a manager that perhaps they wouldn't have plumped for, and we get different tactics then. And everything feeds into each other, but when one thing is pulled away, if you haven't got the supporters coming, then that pulls other things away. Clubs don't want to take chances. People turn onto the TV, they don't see fans in the stand, go, oh, that must be a boring product. Reconfirms their belief that the K-League is not worth watching. It's this constant cycle of you just need something to work for the other things to work.
And yet, I tell you that the 2002 World Cup, still, the results from that inspire so many people. It inspires every one of these players in this squad. It's not necessarily a bad thing to have high expectations. There's a difference between unrealistic expectations versus having high expectations. I think we can shoot for higher, and the result of that is a lot of positive changes to the infrastructure that can only help, I think, the Korean national program as a whole. The inspiration, again, is a lot of good energy, and I think it's good that we have that at high expectation. But again, there's so many different changes that need to be made. One of the major ones that I've always harped on is when researching into how Korean players can get better, we need to unshackle them from things like military conscription. And I know it's a huge hot button issue. I can get myself on hot water for just simply talking about things like a reasonable deferment of military service. But the reality is there's other countries that do have military conscription that are even more stricter than Korea's, but they're allowing flexibility for their footballers to be able to compete competitively anywhere in the world, unshackled from military requirements. And by the time they retire, they're still in physical shape to be able to fulfill their military duty at a later time. I think that's not unreasonable kind of a compromise, but Korea just simply hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even just have to go towards football as well. It can expand out to other sports as well. You've got professional athletes at the peak of their game that are having to still go and do this military service. It's a hot button issue, not one for me to press, one for you to press gladly. But yeah, it is interesting. Like in the current friendlies that are being played back in 2022, as if we go back to the future.
Sure.
But yeah, we've got six Ghim Sangmu players in the current Paolo Bento squad.
I think so.
You think about other countries who are preparing their teams. How many of them have got 6 players who are doing military service at present in preparation?
Can't think of a single one.
Yeah. But I suppose that's also one of the quirks that makes K-League interesting as well, in a way. You've got to kind of embrace those quirky factors to the league. But yeah, so we've kind of talked a little bit then about the legacy of Korean football, but just make it a little bit wider here. Let's cast the net a bit wider, because this wasn't just about what it meant for Korean football. You've talked about people filling the streets in Gwanghwamun and all the public squares across the country just to watch these games. What did this mean to Korea as a World Cup?
It's huge. I mean, if you think about, I think the Korean, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, the Hallyu, this soft diplomatic wave. When you're seeing high profile Koreans in art, film, music, Bong Joon-ho, the prolific film creator, BTS, Blackpink, etc. They all, in a weird sense, were benefiting from the very first one, which was, I believe, the 2002 results from the World Cup. That deep run was incredibly inspiring, not only to the world. I've not only to Koreans, but I think to the rest of the world. I was in London about 10 years ago, and I spoke to somebody who worked for BBC Sports, and he was from Indian descent, but he was a big Taeguk Warriors follower. And the reason for that was that they represented Asia in being able to, break into a competitive football world that they had not previously known.
Yeah.
And it is incredibly inspiring. But if you go back to then Koreans around the world and around the diaspora, we're spread out like the Irish in a sense in the aftermath of the Korean War.
Mm.
My family certainly was. And, in a large sense, I was very disconnected from my Korean culture for one reason or another. And, when I saw people that looked like me, again, be able to compete against Spain, against Italy, against Poland, Germany, and just being able to punch above their weight, you get the sense of history that has gotten to this point where against the odds, they're able to fight to this point. And I just got riveted seeing this. It was like this history analogous thing happening right before my eyes. And I can't really put into words, very elegantly all that it meant to Koreans like me. But I just felt like this was a spark to try to reconnect with my Korean roots. And it's been a long journey. It continued to be on that journey. But I think for me, it started that process all over again. And it's been a fascinating journey, I'll tell you.
It is. And I hope it's a journey that's going to continue with more at the World Cup, with better look at the World Cup this year and beyond for Korea in terms of developing their football. Roy, before you go, if people want to follow you, talk to you more about this, about 2002, or just talk to you more about Korea and 2022, where can they find you?
Sure. I still do some microblogging of a few thoughts on Korean football, but in ways that are easier for me to time-wise digest. And that's through Twitter, through the old Tavern owner. But you can also find me on Instagram. That's a completely different handle, Western Machines. And that actually is a take on a Korean 1880s phrase, which meant Eastern Learning Western machines, in which they were trying to embrace the West in terms of being able to bring Korea technologically into the current state, but keep their Eastern roots, Eastern learning, Western machines. And so I just took on that last part, Western machines.
I've learned something there myself there. Wow, okay. Right then, Roy, this has been absolutely fascinating. I've really enjoyed this. Really grateful for you coming on. And, well, let's hope for the best for Korea in the World Cup.
대한민국.
대한민국.
And please, I tell you, I hope that anyone listening to this will be able to check out K-League games, because that's where the future of Korean football is. It's really exciting to see, and I'm really, really stoked to see that I can be able to follow it even easier with K-League United. It's really fantastic stuff.
Oh, thank you. And yes, I'm just speaking my language there. If you need any more convincing, go and watch a K-League game.
Right on.
Right, Roy. Thank you very much.
Uji Lewis is your neighborhood British bar and cafe located in the Old Jiro district of Seoul. Decorated in old English antiques and furniture for a true homely feel, you can enjoy homemade scones, cakes and afternoon tea during the day, and traditional British favourites like beef stew, English ale, and a fine selection of wines at night. Available for private parties or simply an evening out, Uji Lewis is sure to become your favourite neighbourhood pub. Be sure to mention K-League United at the bar during your visit and you'll get 10% off your bill.
Welcome back to the K-League United podcast. Before the break, you heard from Roy Ghim, founder of the Tavern of the Taeguk Warriors. Paul, we're wrapping things up now, and I thought we could do a bit of where are they now, but I thought I'm going to quiz you. I'm going to give you the career paths of some of these career players after the 2002 World Cup.
Okay.
And I'd like you and our listeners as well can play along at home. To try and guess who the player was. So I'm just going to talk through maybe some of their career highlights after the 2002 World Cup, nothing before.
Okay.
I'm not going to give it away. So I've got about 6 questions for you here. This player, question 1, this player, after the 2002 World Cup, decided to move to LA Galaxy in 2003 before then hanging up his boots. Would you like any more before I continue?
It's Hong Ming-bo.
Oh, yes. Well done. He went on to manage career in the 2012 Olympics, winning bronze. Did manage career briefly in 2014. Then went to China to manage Hangzhou Greentown, and now at Ulsan Hyundai, leading the K-League 1 at time of recording. Second question. This player retired from playing in 2002. Did go into management in 2008 in the K-League. Has won a league and a cup double at another club as a manager. And he's won Manager of the Year twice, Paul.
It's Hwang Sun-ong.
Yes, that's right. After retiring in 2002, Hwang Sun-ong went to Busan iPark in 2008 before moving to Pohang Steelers, winning the cup double in 2013. And he has won Manager of the Year in 2013 for Pohang and in 2016 as manager of FC Seoul.
I didn't know that he retired in 2002, but okay.
Yeah, you think now some of the times when he came off early, I mean, perhaps
he was 34 at this point, yeah.
This player, he made the switch to PSV Eindhoven in 2003 before deciding to disappear into a void of nothingness until later resurfacing at QPR in 2012. Paul,
I believe it's a one Park Ji-sung who inspired our own Michael Redmond to come and live in South Korea.
He did, yeah. Michael, moved by the plight of Queen's Park Rangers. And yet, Park Ji-sung, now famous for his club ambassador role at Jeonbuk.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did win a few other trophies as well
Somewhere.
along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. This player has become a coach, but after the 2002 World Cup, played for Suwon Blue Wings, before then spending a year at Jeonnam Dragons and retiring in 2012. When I say coach, I'm not talking about a head coach either, Paul. He is very... well, he actually...
Gook?
No, not quite. No. Part of the Suwon team for each of their league titles as well, it should be said. Won the MVP in 2008. Did get into a bit of trouble with his good friends Kim Sang-sik and Lee Dong-guk, resulting in them being suspended for a year from the national team. I'll have to get. I can give you a little bit more of a clue. I kind of talked about this in the last episode. He's currently a coach in the Jeonbuk backroom staff.
Ian J.
Yes,
he
that's
got
right.
banned from the national team.
Kim Sang-sik, Lee Dong-guk, and Ian J. They were suspended for a year from the national team for going out the night before a game against Bahrain, a game which Korea went on to subsequently lose. But he is also...
I was going to say him. So I was going to say him, but I thought he looks like a nice bloke. He was going to get banned from the national team, sure.
Oh, it's shocking. But yeah, he won MVP in 2008 in the K-League. The only goalkeeper to have done so.
Blimey.
And he's practically won all of Suwon's trophies that mean something. Except the later FA Cup. No, I'm joking.
Was it the... never mind. What it's called.
He's won all their league trophies, and yes, their successes in Asia. This player retired in 2015. After 2002, played for Pohang, Seoul, Gyeongnam, and Jeonnam. And you may know him as the player who has made the most K-League appearances in history.
Kim Byung-ji.
Yep, 706 K-League appearances for Kim Byung-ji.
And he once told me to calm down.
He once told you to calm down?
He did. I was at Jeonnam away in 2013, and we had them on the ropes. I think we drew 2-2, and we had a good go at getting a winner late in the second half, and their Daejeon were kicking towards this end where we were in the away end, and me and Liam Birch, sort of infamous Daejeon fan from the mid 2000s, he and I were chanting things towards Kim Byung-ji, and he must have got a bit annoyed and turned around and did this kind of like calm down gesture. So there we go. Claim to fame. At the time, I didn't really fully understand how much of a legend and national treasure that he is, but there we go. Yeah, he did tell me to calm down once.
Mm-hmm. Final question. Obviously, we could go through all these Korean players. Actually, no, I've got two more. Penultimate question. This player also made it to 2015, but actually only made his K-League debut in 2013. Want to have a guess before I give you any clubs? Give you more hints?
Yeah, one more hint.
All right. In 2002, he moved to Bayern Leverkusen. In fact, he's got quite the German link. He played in Frankfurt, Koblenz, Chaduri before moving to Celtic, Fortuna Düsseldorf, and then eventually finding his way to FC Seoul in 2013 and hanging.
I met him actually, in the aquarium at Coex on I think it was Boxing Day 2014. Got a picture of him.
Oh, lovely!
Very nice guy.
Okay, this last one was one of the athletes who carried the 2018 Winter Olympic flame into the opening ceremony.
An Jong-hwan.
I should have got... Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's ruined everything I had planned there.
Go on. Just tell me what he said.
Okay, well, I was going to go through his clubs, which... but before I was going to go through his clubs, I was going to go through his TV appearances. But okay, his clubs, Shimizu S Pulse, after the 2002 World Cup. Yokohama F. Marinos, Metz, MSV Duisburg, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, Busan Park, and Dalian Shida. But yeah, he is. I was going to name you some of his TV shows that include Dad, Where Are We Going? Or Bardiga. I remember that show being out. I don't quite remember Please Take Care of My Refrigerator.
I
which
do.
was, yeah, do you?
Nenjango Butake. It's where they open up your fridge and you make something with what you have in your fridge. So like a chef, a celebrity chef, that is like two celebrities against each other, and then they somehow bring your fridge from home, the celebrity's fridge, with everything that's in it, and the chef has to make a meal out of what's in it.
I have seen that show.
Yeah.
And I'm quite glad they haven't got mine. But yeah.
That's what tins.
I'd hate the thought of An Jung Hwan coming around my house and taking my fridge.
Your tins out of the fridge, put those back now. They'll go warm.
You may have scored the winner against Italy, but you have no right in here, An Jung Hwan. But that brings our quiz to a close, Paul. And it brings this whole podcast series to a whole. Paul, before we go back in our time machine, before we go back to the future, even.
There you go.
Final thoughts on the 2002 World Cup.
It's been really great, and there are actually more high definition highlights on YouTube than I thought there'd be. There's quite a lot. I thought it was going to be like very like grainy highlights in like low definition, but no, it's quite good. I think we've said most things that we've said throughout the course of this episode and the last one as well. I've just enjoyed the journey. Yeah,
it's certainly been good to get a fresh perspective on something that happened when I was back in middle school, and I think I said it in episode 1, and I stand by it now. The idea I had of this team from my hazy memories were that it was underdogs, which they were, but I had the typical underdog mindset that they were defending for their lives in every game, and looking back, that was clearly not the case, and it's been a refreshing look back, I think, and one we should do again, perhaps, but maybe not with any of the, maybe not with all the Korean teams, but something perhaps we should look back some point with something else.
Yeah, we should.
Anyway, that is it from us. And also, we should say before we go, thank you to all our guests that we've had on throughout the series and all the insight they've provided. Thank you as well to all of you at home who have listened to this, who have chimed in with your memories as well from the World Cup. It's been really good to go back and look at these. So, thank you again to everybody. Normal programming will resume in July. But for now, from me, Matthew Binns, and Paul Neat. Goodbye.
축구의 새로운 역사를 역사의 현장에 우리 국민들은 다 같이 보고 있는 기쁨의 순간입니다. 이것은 한국 축구의 실력이 아닙니다. 한국